Self-Management, 10-Step Instructional Sequence. Peggy King Sears, Professor, Graduate School of Education, Division of Special Education and Disability Research at George Mason University. Teaching students to use self-management using the 10-step instructional sequence clusters around three categories. The first category is introducing the target behavior. The second category is introduce the self-management system, that is, the device and the process. The third category is to provide practice and assess mastery. Now, the first category, introduce the behavior, there are 3 steps. Step 1 is to name the behavior, demonstrate examples and non-examples. Step 2, discuss the importance of the target behavior. Step 3, provide practice with mastery criteria. Some examples of selected behaviors are, for a single behavior, do work, single set of behaviors, put your book bag away, find out what morning work assignment is, take out materials for morning work, and do work. A category of behaviors, however, could be initiates and completes tasks. Any of these can be used for self-management. It's usually better if you define, describe single behavior or a single set of behaviors, and all of them are under the category of initiates and completes tasks. Here are some examples and non-examples of on-task behaviors. Notice that the on-task behaviors are the things that you want the student to do, and the off-task behaviors are probably what the student is already doing. Sometimes it's helpful during this step to have something written out for the student to refer to, and with younger students you may be using pictures on either side. Step 2 is to discuss the importance of the student doing these on-task behaviors. Step 3 is to provide practice with mastery criteria. The mastery criteria is that you would want the student exhibiting all of the on-task behaviors all of the time and probably not doing any of the off-task behaviors, or you would want those occurring very infrequently. So this would be the time during step 3 is to call that out to the student. Now, under the second category, introduce the self-management system, that is, the device and the process. Step 4 is to describe the self-management system and its benefits. Step 5 is to model or think aloud using the self-management device while performing the target behavior. So in deciding the type of self-management that you want to teach the student, that starts to impact what type of device you want to use. You may decide on self-monitoring if the student is not aware of how many times, how much, or when he or she is exhibiting a behavior. Select self-evaluation if the student seems to be aware of the quantity of behavior and you want the student to focus on the quality of the behavior. Self-reinforcement is when the student seems aware of quantity and quality, and you want the student to take more responsibility for increasing those aspects and then rewarding him or herself. Here's a sample self-monitoring device for was I working? Check yes or no when you hear the beep. And you can see that there are variations also noted on this page. Here's an example of a self-evaluation device. At the end of each work session, mark how well you think you worked during that time. Poor, okay, or very good. Here's a self-reinforcement device with directions to place a check mark in each box after you do a math problem. Take a 1-minute break, use the clock, when you reach the reward box. Then go back to work on the math problems. Some signals to self-manage are a bell, vibration, a silent cue such as a hand motion, a timer, maybe a watch with an alarm function, or specific class times such as transitions, after seat work, or at the end of class. Modeling is to talk with the student about what you're thinking as you're using the self-management device. I just heard the bell. Was I on task? Yes, I was. So I marked yes on my self-monitoring form. The third category is to provide practice and assess mastery. And steps 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 all fall within this category. For step 6, provide guided practice and role play. Anticipate that you will practice and model multiple times the examples and non-examples that you created earlier. Figure at least 3 scenarios for role plays and use more scenarios if needed. Involve students and have fun. In step 7, you assess mastery during the role play, in the role play. And here's a checklist for mastery that you can use during guided practice right now, and you may use later during independent practice. And what you'll want to do is to have an answer of yes to each one of these during the same session. So you'll be asking the student to identify examples and non-examples, demonstrate examples and non-examples, demonstrate using the system while performing the target behavior during practice, and noting, does the teacher use the self-management device accurately? Does the student identify the importance and benefits of the target behavior and the self-management system? So you'll want to answer yes to all of those, or you want the student to answer yes to each of these. Now, make sure students realize that this is not a test. You want students to distinguish testing from mastery and expect multiple checklist checkouts before mastery occurs. In step 8, you discuss the specific situation in which the student will be using the self-management system. Make sure students can answer and do these. How do you get your device and other materials needed? When will you use the system? Where will you use the system? How often will you use the system? And what do you do with materials at the end of that time period? Step 9, provide independent practice. Have students show correct usage of the self-management system, that is the device and the process, one more time independently. And then the next day is when the student uses the system in the authentic situation on his or her own or independently. And that is step 10. Assess mastery within that actual situation. So for the first day of students' use of self-management system, the teacher uses the system at the same time. And note the percentage or the number of match between your data and the student data. Is the student using the system appropriately? If yes, the student proceeds in using it. And if no, you may want to return to appropriate parts of steps 6 through 9 for practice, then do step 10 again. For more information on how to use the 10-step instructional sequence, access one or more of these resources.